Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to this weekend preview for this weekend's 2022 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix of the 2022 Formula 1 season. Great to have all you guys here for this final preview of the season. Hopefully you're all doing well on what is a very cold and very wet day in my part of the UK. Hopefully it's a bit better where you are. And yeah, obviously in this preview we're going to get into the usual, going through all the teams, how I think they're going to get on this weekend. Also some news. There has been a bit of news since the last Grand Prix last weekend in Sao Paulo. And yeah, we'll be getting to some of that in this stream. Some stats through the night as well in regards to certain teams and drivers and the championship standings, and obviously a bit of a bit about the track itself for any newer F1 viewers. But great to have you guys here for the start of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend. And no matter what time it is in your part of the world or where you're from, I hope you're all having as best a day as possible at the moment, no matter what the circumstances are with, whatever's going on in your particular lives. And hopefully you'll join me tonight in previewing this final race of the season and join me for the final race of 2022 this weekend, which I'm sure will be interesting. Definitely won't be as exciting as the last Grand Prix because, this track is nowhere near as easy to overtake at, but I'm sure we'll still get some interesting talking points from this Grand Prix. And of course, once the Grand Prix is finished, we'll be getting into, reviewing the Formula 1 season as well. So yeah, there is still plenty to come for the rest of the, next few days. And I hope all you guys can join me for that. And also, there has been a slight change to the schedule for, not for this weekend, but when it comes to my season review, because I was planning on doing it for Sunday night after the race had finished earlier that day. But because it's probably going to take me longer to get all the things I want set up for the stream, I'm instead going to do my season review stream on Monday night. So, yeah, that's what's going to be happening in regards to me reviewing the Formula 1 season of 2022. But, yeah, hopefully you guys can join me for that after this weekend's race. But, yeah, great to see you all here. And it is going to be great for a final time in 2022 to call a Grand Prix and to see, what truly goes down. Because there are still some very important fights going on, mostly in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, there are still some very important things going on in Formula 1 that will be decided, of course, this weekend, especially in that midfield pack. So we'll obviously be talking about that. Obviously, we're going to have to say goodbye to a couple drivers this weekend as well, which will be a bit hard and emotional. But yeah, it's going to be definitely not a complete dead rubber, this Grand Prix. There is still stuff on the line this weekend in regards to the teams and drivers, which is at least good. But before we get into the teams and, some news about certain teams and also how I think they will do here in Abu Dhabi, let's get into the championship standings, shall we? So obviously Max Verstappen, the world champion, 429 points he's now on. Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez are level on points. Leclerc is second, with Perez third. Leclerc second because he has more wins in 2022. 3 wins to Perez's 2. That's why he's in second. So that's a very important battle. As we saw from Brazil, where Perez was desperate to be ahead of Verstappen on the track, it is still an important battle for the drivers there. George Russell in 4th place. Russell technically does have a chance of finishing in second, but he is 25 points behind Leclerc and Perez and would need to win the race, get the fastest lap, and hope that Leclerc and Perez both do not score points, which is unrealistic to say the least. Lewis Hamilton is in 5th place. It looks as though Hamilton is most likely going to finish 5th in the championship unless Carlos Sainz has a big weekend. Lando Norris is in 7th place. He's going to finish in 7th place with Esteban Ocon 8th. Alonso in 9th. Alonso could still snatch 8th place from Ocon. And then Valtteri Bottas on in 10th on 49 points. And obviously scored a couple vital points for Alfa Romeo in Brazil. On the constructor side, Red Bull 719 points they are out front. That has got to be quite possibly the most amount of points I think I've seen for a championship winning team. Maybe we've seen more. I can't quite remember, but yeah, that is a mental amount of points, I have to say. Ferrari are of course in second, but they are only 19 points clear of Mercedes. Now, Ferrari are still the favourites to finish in second, but if Mercedes have another big weekend like they had in Brazil, it is absolutely possible that Mercedes could end up finishing second in the championship, which would be a very good recovery from them, considering at the start of the season we thought maybe they might not be able to finish third because they were looking very, very slow at the start of this year. So a great recovery from the Mercedes team. And of course, they had a 1-2 in Brazil last weekend, so good to see them back to winning Grand Prix again. Alpine are in fourth. They are 19 points clear of McLaren. Technically, Alpine and McLaren, that battle is still going on. But realistically, I think Alpine have secured fourth place in the championship. McLaren's double DNF in Brazil, costing them just vitally in Brazil. And a terrible result, really, for the McLaren team. Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin still in a very close fight for sixth in the championship. Very important to Alfa Romeo, of course, because they need that extra prize money more than Aston Martin do. And with Valtteri Bottas outscoring Lance Stroll by a point in Brazil, that means that they come into this race, Alfa Romeo 5 points clear of Aston Martin. Realistically, unless Vettel has an amazing final race, Alfa Romeo should finish sixth in the championship. That's what should happen, but you never know in F1. So we will see what happens. And then, yes, still an important fight going on between Haas and AlphaTauri. 2 points separating them. Haas in 8th and AlphaTauri in 9th. That fight a lot more important to Haas F1 because, again, they are the team that more so struggle with money compared to AlphaTauri. So, yeah, it would be nice, I think, if Alfa Romeo and Haas could come out on top in those battles because it would help them financially going forward. But, yeah, there's still some good close battles in the championship. Ferrari and Mercedes, Alpine and McLaren, I'm not so sure is really a battle anymore. And then obviously Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, and Haas and AlphaTauri. So watch out for those battles this weekend in the final Grand Prix of 2022. But now, let's go on to the first team, the champions, and that is Red Bull. And of course, you can see on your screen the contact between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in Brazil. And yeah, last weekend's Grand Prix was so messy from the Red Bull team. I mean, the Friday qualifying, they didn't get pole, obviously, but I don't think you can really blame them. I think Magnussen just put in a great lap, and obviously the timing of where Magnussen was on track was very, very good from Haas F1. And then the sprint race, obviously Red Bull got it very wrong with what tyres Max Verstappen started on, the medium compound tyre. Mercedes were also very, very quick, but Red Bull just didn't get it right on the strategy. That cost them very dearly, and that's why Verstappen finished in 4th and Perez in 5th. They started 3rd and 4th, though, for the Grand Prix, and then on the safety car restart after the first lap crash with Ricciardo and Magnussen, Max went for the move, ran the outside of turn 1, then for the inside of turn 2, and just forced his way in there and had a crash with Hamilton, and deservedly got a penalty because it was definitely his fault as to why that crash happened. And then obviously came back to the field did Verstappen. Sergio Perez was hampered at the end of the race after the second safety car restart. Perez was hampered by what do you call it? By being on medium tyres when everyone else was on the soft compound tyre. Verstappen overtook him, but because Verstappen, he tried then to go after Alonso, but because he failed to pass Alonso, Red Bull obviously wanted him to let Perez back through, and he decided not to, and he said that he had his own reasons when it came to that. So it's been a very tough, within the team, very, very tough last few days. Similar to the aftermath of Multi-21 back 9 years ago in Malaysia. Different circumstances, but in terms of the feeling within the team afterwards, definitely similar to what happened there. I've already said what I've had to say. I thought Verstappen was wrong for not letting Perez through. Even if he feels as though Perez has wronged him in the past, I don't think he should have died on this hill, I guess you could say. He should not really have done what he had done. Should have let Perez have the 6th place. Would have had then a couple extra points in the championship. And, would have helped the relations in that team. But he did what he did. And that's, the end of it at the end of the day. And they come into this Grand Prix looking to bounce back from what was I wouldn't say a horror show in Brazil, because they were still competitive, but it was just, they just didn't deliver really at any point of the weekend when they really needed to, which is something that Red Bull don't normally do. Normally they deliver when it really matters most, but Red Bull, weren't good at that at all last weekend in Sao Paulo. And they've also issued a statement, Red Bull, coming into this Grand Prix. And the statement they've issued is kind of a reflection, I guess you could say, on what's happened in the build-up to this Grand Prix. And they've also called out some what do you call it? They've also called out some of the reaction they've got from, say, the F1 community and fans online. And I'm going to just quickly try and get that statement on the screen to see if I can, read it out to you guys, and you guys can, see it on screen. Let me just get it up. Let me just zoom in a bit. There you go. And I'll just quickly show it on screen for you guys. So here is Red Bull's team statement after the Brazilian Grand Prix that they issued earlier today. They say, as a team, we made some mistakes in Brazil. We had not envisaged the situation that unfolded on the last lap, and we had not agreed a strategy for such a scenario before the race. Regretfully, Max was only informed at the final corner of the request to give up position without all the necessary information being relayed. This put Max, who has always been an open and fair team player, in a compromising situation with little time to react. I don't think that's much of an excuse, by the way, because he's, at the final sector, after that final corner, there is still a bit of time to, to adjust. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And which Red Bull say which was not our intention. Following the race, Max spoke openly and honestly, allowing for both drivers to resolve any outstanding issues or concerns. The team accept Max's reasoning. The conversation was a personal matter which will remain private between the team, and no further comment will be made. And then it goes on to say, the events that followed from a social media point of view are completely unacceptable. The abuse online behaviour, or the abusive, online behaviour towards Max, Checo and the team and their respective families is shocking, saddening, unfortunately, is something that we as a sport are having to address with depressing regularity. There is no place for it in racing or society as a whole. We need to do and be better. At the end of the day, this is a sport. We're here to race. Death threats, hate mail, vitriol towards extended family members is deplorable. We value inclusion and want a safe space for everyone to work in and enjoy our sport. The abuse needs to stop. Now, when it comes to the second paragraph there, I echo everything that they say. Abuse online is bad, obviously. But in regards to the first paragraph, even though, Max was only told at the final corner, I still think that's enough time for Verstappen to let him through. Because, that run from the final corner to the start-finish line is, 15 seconds, is it? Maybe 13 seconds? So that's still plenty of time to slow down and let Checo go. Even though Perez was about 4 seconds behind, I still think that's, enough time for Max, to let Perez through. But when it comes to the statement where it says, following the race, Max spoke openly and honestly, allowing for both drivers to resolve any outstanding issues or concerns, and the team accepted Max's reasoning, there has been a I don't know if you would call it a conspiracy theory, but that basically Max Verstappen did not let Perez through because of an issue or incident relating to the Monaco Grand Prix, where Sergio Perez, at the end of Q3, crashed and ended the session, and it meant that Max Verstappen and nobody else could go any quicker. Now, there would have been a red flag anyway, because Fernando Alonso put it in the barriers a few corners before, where Perez put it in the barriers right before the tunnel section. But there is a belief online that I've seen for sure, and reviewing the incident, I think there's a good amount of evidence that could suggest so. But also, apparently, again, it is a rumor, this is not confirmed, but apparently Red Bull know that Sergio Perez deliberately caused a red flag and crashed because he was ahead of Verstappen on the grid, and did what he did to end qualifying the way it did, with obviously Ferrari on the front row and Red Bull on the second row. Now, reviewing the video footage with the sound, it does seem as though Perez either mistakenly applied way too much throttle at a point of that corner where normally a driver would not apply throttle in the way he did, or he did do it deliberately. I'm still not going to sit here and say that he did it deliberately, because we don't know. It could have been a mistake where he just applied a tad bit too much throttle. F1 cars are sometimes like that, where if you put the car in the wrong position on the track and you apply a slight bit too much throttle, they can just easily pirouette. It is possible, but the evidence is there, and the evidence is not like massively strong, but I'd say strong enough for there to be a good accusation thrown Perez's way. The thing is, though, with Max, is, let's say he did do that on purpose. At the end of the day, what's happened. It hasn't affected Max Verstappen's championship, and he's still the world champion, so it hasn't really affected him. I mean, yeah, it affected maybe that Grand Prix, because maybe Max could have got ahead of Sergio on the grid, then probably won the race. But at the end of the day, Max, is the world champion, and like I said, it didn't actually affect what happened for him in 2022. So I still think Max should have let Checo go, because it was the right thing to do, not just for his teammate, but for the team. I don't think it was worth all the the reaction afterwards and what happened within the team afterwards. I just don't think it was worth that whatsoever. But that's what happened at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and of course this weekend they are looking to get back to business, I guess you could say, and try and win the final Grand Prix, and also try, I guess, and get Sergio Perez to finish in second place. The chances of Perez finishing in second, I would say, are good, but I wouldn't say are as great, because as great as maybe it would be if if the final Grand Prix was at a circuit like it was in Sao Paulo. This type of track, I think, doesn't suit Red Bull as much as it would, or as the Interlagos track did. So this weekend's going to be a bit harder. Going to be a bit harder for Perez for sure to be able to get onto not pole position in the front row. What am I about? To try and finish in second place. It's going to be a bit more difficult. Who do I think will finish in second? I think it will be Charles Leclerc, because I think Leclerc will have a strong qualifying here, and that will help him massively in finishing second in the championship and beating Sergio Perez this weekend. But I'm hoping, from Red Bull's perspective, that there isn't no further ill will displayed in this Grand Prix, because I really thought Verstappen and Perez were a very good little partnership, and I would be a bit gutted to hear that the relationship had soured massively, and for a permanent time afterwards, because like I said, I thought they had a very good partnership. They were a very good working partnership for the team, and looked or seemed to have a good relationship. So yeah, it would be a shame if it did turn out that way. But in regards to the pace of their car, in qualifying, it's going to be close, because I don't think Red Bull have a car that is going to be amazing in low fuel qualifying. I think Ferrari are definitely going to be right up there fighting for pole position, and it's going to be a close fight for pole position. But I think in the race on the Sunday, it's probably going to be Red Bull coming out on top with Max Verstappen. Remember, Max Verstappen has won the previous 2 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, even though, of course, last year was under very dubious circumstances. But yeah, Max has always been very quick here. Sergio has been quick here as well in, his days for Force India and Racing Point. So yeah, both drivers should be fine. The car should be absolutely fine for the race, but qualifying, I think, is where they might come up a bit short for this weekend, if they do at all, do Red Bull. But yeah, in terms of who's going to win this weekend, I think it will be Max Verstappen, but it will be a close fight. And obviously Mercedes on a track like this will definitely play a role and have a say in regards to who wins in this final Grand Prix. But yeah, for me, Max Verstappen wins for Red Bull. Let me know, guys, in the chat, who do you think wins the final Grand Prix? I will do a poll in the chat to ask you guys, who do you think is going to win the Grand Prix this weekend? But yeah, for me, it's going to be Max Verstappen. But it will be a close fight. There's no doubt about that. But let's get into a stat or a few stats regarding Red Bull and Verstappen. Max Verstappen has won the last 2 races in Abu Dhabi. Also won in 2020. A comfortable race win that was for him. Red Bull have won in Abu Dhabi 5 times since 2009. Obviously, 2009, 2010, 2013, and then 2020 and 2021, the 5 wins at this Grand Prix. And in 2022, Red Bull have won 16 races, looking for the 17th this weekend. And that would be a brilliant, race win total to come away from this season with. Because I think at the start of the season, nobody would have predicted that Red Bull would have won so many races this season. But I think now we will go on to the Scuderia Ferrari team. And for the final race this season, their chances of victory are increased around a track like this. I think it definitely suits the strengths of the Ferrari car better than the previous couple Grand Prix. But it is still going to be a very hard race weekend. We know Ferrari's weaknesses have really hampered them in the last few Grand Prix. And we have had, with Ferrari coming into this Grand Prix, and we have had some news in regards to, or a report in regards to maybe why they haven't won in the second half of the season, won a Grand Prix. Apparently, again, this is not confirmed, but apparently Ferrari have had to turn their engine down a bit more so than they would like because of their reliability concerns, and that's lost them lap time. So yeah, not great at all. Obviously, they were very unreliable, the Ferrari power units in the first half of the season. That reliability from the Ferrari power unit has improved, but it seems as though it's probably been because of, not running as aggressively with the engine as they could. But, disappointing to hear that, to be honest. Obviously, that's something they need to fix for 2023. But another bit of news we've had, good news, if you're a Ferrari fan, very good news, is there are rumours that Matteo Binotto, the current team principal, and I stress current, might be on his way out for 2023. He's going to try and find the article, if I can. Let me just try and find it quickly. Ferrari, by the way, did issue a statement. I'll quickly read out what the statement says. They said, in relation to speculation in certain media regarding the Ferrari team principal Binotto's position, Ferrari states that these rumours are totally without foundation. Well, we'll see in the end what, happens there. Right, so here we go. And this is from the Ferrari unofficial fan account for the Ferrari team. But it does have over 100,000 followers now. And they are pretty reliable, this Twitter account, at reporting news in regards to the Ferrari team. So let me just quickly put this on screen. So they said, what was it? A couple of days ago, big breaking news. According to Gazzetta, which is a massive, by the way, Italian newspaper, Binotto will be replaced by Frederic Vasseur, and Vasseur will take his new role in January. And you can see here is the article from Gazzetta, and it goes on to say that, once obviously it's translated into English, that Frederic Vasseur had already been probed in the summer by Ferrari president John Elkann, because the top management of Maranello were evaluating an alternative to Binotto, but it did not materialise. By the way, sorry if I said that word wrong. It is a bit of a hard one for me. But this is great news if this is true. And I think there is a decent chance that this is true, because at the end of the day, even though Binotto came out at the start of the season and said, our aim is to be competitive, if you are Ferrari and you produce a car that can win a championship, then the expectation, no matter what you say in regards to what your aim is coming into a season, the expectation from then on is going to be to win the World Championship. And there is no doubt about it, within the team, at least the majority of the team, the aim was to win the championship. And obviously they have failed horribly at that. I mean, would they have won the championship in the end, even if they had been a lot more of a competent of a team? Maybe not, but they didn't exactly make it hard, did they, for Red Bull to get as many wins as they have this season and to have the success that they have had in 2022. And how long have I been saying, guys, about, that Binotto should be replaced as team principal because he's simply not good enough? But also, how long have I been mentioning Fred Vasseur's name? Obviously, he's the Alfa Romeo team boss. How long have I been mentioning his name in regards to possible Ferrari team bosses? I've said it so many times that, he is absolutely someone who should be looked at in regards to this role. He's got a good experience in racing. He's had success in the past. He's, worked in F1 for quite a while. He's done a good job with the Alfa Romeo team, and also has a very good close relationship with Charles Leclerc's agent, Nicolas Tot, and Charles Leclerc himself. So, for me, it's in terms of looking at the team principals on the grid, maybe you could say Andrea Seidel, who apparently is another option Ferrari have, or maybe are still looking at in regards to this position. It's a very good option for Ferrari to go for if this is true. And honestly, I hope it is. The best case would be Binotto dropping back to the technical department, because he is still good when it comes to the technical side of F1. Not maybe the best on the grid, though I still think there's probably a couple people I can think of who are better in that department, but he's definitely a lot better at the technical side of F1. And, when it comes to the design of cars, I think that's really where he excels a lot more than being the team boss. So, if he could drop back to that and Fred becomes team boss, that would be a big step in the right direction. It really, really would for Ferrari. Would it be all the problems solved? Obviously not. It would not be, but it would definitely begin that process. There is no doubt about it. And I'll try and find, actually, on the Ferrari news Twitter here. Here you go. They did a Twitter post about, Frederic Vasseur's, what has he done in motorsport? So he founded the ASM team in 1996, and he won multiple F3 championships with Lewis Hamilton, formed the ART team with Nicolas Tot, who obviously Jean Tot's son, in 2004, and they won GP2 with Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. Was Renault team boss in 2016. To be honest, Renault probably should have kept him, because he's definitely a better team principal than Cyril Abiteboul was. And yeah, has been the Sauber/Alfa Romeo team principal since 2017. And of course, he was the team boss when Charles Leclerc was there in 2018. So I think it's a great acquisition if this is true. It would be great for Ferrari. Again, it would not be all their problems would not be solved by, just getting rid of Binotto and, putting Fred Vasseur in that team principal role. That wouldn't be all the problems solved. They still have other things to solve, such as getting rid of Inaki Rueda, the head strategist at Ferrari, and replacing him with someone who is competent and clearly can do the role successfully. And also, improving the not the environment of the Ferrari team, but trying to develop a different culture at Ferrari, more of a winning culture than what they've been doing in the last 10 to 15 years. There is still, like I said, quite a bit work to be done still, but if they do make this choice, for me it is absolutely the right choice, and it is a step in the right direction. So if you're a Ferrari fan, let me know what you think of that in the chat. Do you think that is likely to happen? Let me know. But yeah, it would be great, honestly, if Fred was to get that position at Ferrari, and would definitely improve the team in the next few years. Not massively. Again, still other things to be worked on, but it's definitely going to make things better for the Ferrari team. In regards to this weekend, yeah, qualifying, I think they're definitely competitive enough to get pole position. Because of their lack of race pace, though, which will hurt them a lot more so here than it would in Brazil, I think they're going to struggle a lot to win the race. So, yeah, the best I can see for them in the Grand Prix is a podium. A single podium, of course. But, yeah, pole position maybe they could get. And we have seen the record of pole position being very good here, but it is a bit easier to overtake around this track with the track changes we saw for last year's Grand Prix, which, of course, are continuing from now on. But let's get into some stats regarding Ferrari and Charles Leclerc coming into this weekend's final race. So Charles Leclerc's best result in Abu Dhabi is third from 2019. Ferrari have never won the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is embarrassing. This race has been on the calendar since 2009, and they have invested in the local area, obviously with the Ferrari World place that is in the surrounding area of where the Grand Prix is. Very embarrassing. They've never won a race here. They've only had 3 second place finishes here, which was 2011, 2012, and 2018. But yeah, they've never, and looking back, I think the closest they really got to winning was Alonso in 2012, where he finished just a second behind Kimi Räikkönen, who won the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 10 years ago. It is amazing to think that race was 10 years ago. Makes me feel so old. I remember it like it was yesterday, that Grand Prix. But yeah, 10 years ago it was. I think 10 years and 2 weeks or something like that. It used to be, I think, early November, that race back then. But yeah, just incredible to think that. And incredible to think Ferrari have never won this race, even though it's been on the calendar for, 12, 13 years. We'll see if they can get that first win this weekend. Ferrari, they've also won just 4 races in 2022. When you look back at this season, really, they should have won, instead of 4 races, it should be 8 or 9 race wins for this season. Would that have been enough to win the championship? Again, probably not, but they should have had way more success this season than they actually did. It's not been anywhere near as good from Ferrari as it really should have been. But now, we will go on to the race winners of last weekend's Grand Prix, Mercedes-Benz. What a Grand Prix it was in Brazil. They were clearly the quickest team and deserved to win the race. They were the best performing team as well. And yeah, it was very good to see Mercedes finally get the win in Brazil, because I think it has absolutely made things more exciting for us F1 fans now going into next season, because we now know that Mercedes, they can still win races. They've still got the pace, and we know that with, next season, if they start the season off just a few tenths of a second closer to Red Bull and Ferrari with the extra wind tunnel testing time they'll get next year anyway, that absolutely next season a championship could be on their way, on its way back to Mercedes-Benz. But yeah, great weekend last weekend. This weekend, though, will be automatically harder. And the reason I say that is because with the sprint race last weekend, and because we know Mercedes have good race pace anyway, it did help. Because of their very good race pace, it did help that there were 2 races, essentially, in Brazil. And obviously this weekend, there'll only be 1. And we still know when it comes to proper low-fuel qualifying that Mercedes still lack the raw pace that Red Bull and Ferrari have over a single lap. I know, obviously, Brazil, it was hard to tell with Friday qualifying there. Obviously, Mexico, they were very quick, but that was more about the conditions. But, you know, we saw at the US Grand Prix, they ended up qualifying in 5th and 6th. Obviously, came very close to winning because of grid penalties helping them as well. But, yeah, Mercedes, I still think fundamentally lack that pace over a single lap. And I think that's what will cost them this weekend. I think they'll probably end up 4th and 5th maybe at best. And then in the race, they'll definitely make progress, probably be on the podium. But I don't think they'll win the Grand Prix because Max Verstappen will have just enough pace out front. And Mercedes will probably get held up by the slower Ferraris ahead of them most likely on the grid. So, yeah, Mercedes, they'll have good pace on a Sunday, but because of the lack of good grid position, it just won't end up being as successful as it was in Brazil. But they should have definitely the pace to win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But, yeah, it's just that lack of track position that's going to cost them in this Grand Prix. Thankfully, from Mercedes' point of view, no big news coming into this Grand Prix. Looking absolutely fine on their front. And, yeah, they'll be absolutely fine this weekend. I think they'll definitely finish on the podium. I'm going to go Lewis Hamilton finishing in 2nd place. And then, obviously, that means my prediction for this weekend is Verstappen to win. Hamilton 2nd, Leclerc 3rd. And then I'll probably go with, I don't know, Perez or Russell in 4th place. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. But, yeah, that's my prediction for the podium. Like I said, guys, let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree with that. But, yeah, it's good, like I said, that they're ending the season this way because it gives us hope that next season we're going to get an actual championship battle rather than, you know, a pretend championship battle because we didn't really get one this season. We had a title fight for about 8 races in 2022 out of the 22 races. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get a bit more next season. And if we could get something reminiscing 2021, just without the poor decisions from the FIA, then that would be absolutely fantastic. But let's get into quickly some stats regarding Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton coming into this final Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has been very successful here. He's won in Abu Dhabi 5 times since 2011, in 2011, 2014, 2016, 2018, and 2019. And of course, he won the championship here, his 2nd championship, and his 1st for Mercedes in 2014 here. What was that? 8 years ago. Again, wild to think that was 8 years ago. Mercedes have won in Abu Dhabi 6 times since 2014. And Lewis's last win in F1 was 11 months ago in Saudi Arabia. So, of course, Russell got his first win. Got Mercedes' first win of the season. Now, from Mercedes' point of view, just need to get Lewis Hamilton his first win of the season to keep up that record of having at least 1 win per season, and he of course only has 1 final race to do that. It would be amazing, to be honest, if Lewis could finish his career with that record, but we'll see how he gets on this weekend. If he's going to win the Grand Prix this weekend, I think really he needs to be at worst Hamilton 3rd on the grid. If he's 4th or 5th, I just think, yeah, it's going to be a bit too difficult, but 3rd on the grid, you know, if he makes up a position at the start and then sticks close to Verstappen or Leclerc or whoever's in the lead, absolutely possible. No doubt about it. So, yeah, we'll see how they get on qualifying. That's going to be the key, I think, for Mercedes if they're going to win another Grand Prix in 2022. Now, quickly, before I go on to the rest of the teams, just want to say quickly, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because we'll be having plenty more content this weekend for this final race in Abu Dhabi. And of course, we will have an absolute ton of content heading your way in regards to pre-season testing and the 2023 Formula 1 season. The 2023 Formula 1 season begins, guys, by the way, on the, first weekend of March, which is 3.5 months, is it? Yeah, about 3.5 months from now. Seems a long time, but trust me, it'll be around very, very soon. And yeah, it would be great to have you guys along for all that content, for this weekend, for the winter as well, because I've got plenty of content coming your way, and for 2023. So don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And for everyone watching right now, don't forget to smash the like button on this video, because of course it does help the channel grow. Now, just wanted to say quickly, for any new viewers, who are maybe wondering, what is your schedule or plan for this weekend? So obviously, I'm streaming right now for the weekend preview. Tomorrow night, I'll be live at 6 p.m. UK time for my qualifying preview, where I'll go through all the practice, look at the data, and give you basically my best prediction going into qualifying. And then on Saturday, I'll be live at 10:45 a.m. UK time. Firstly, from 10:45 till 12 for the practice 3 watch along. 12 till 2 p.m. will be the build up to qualifying. Then 2 p.m. UK time till 3 p.m. will be the watch along for qualifying. And then for at least half an hour after the session finishes, I'll be doing a reaction with you guys to what's happened in that session. And then on race day, I'll be live at 11 a.m. UK time for the race preview, which will be going up until 12:30 p.m. Then 12:30 p.m. UK time till 3 p.m. will be the race watch along. The race starts at 1 p.m. UK time, and I will be joined by my co-commentator Nibble over one final time in 2022. And then I will stick around for an hour after the race finishes with you guys to react to what's ever happened in the Grand Prix till, say, 4 p.m. UK time. And then, remember, on Monday, 6 p.m. UK time, I will be live for the 2022 Formula 1 season review. So make sure to come along to that on Monday evening. And then in regards to content after that, make sure to come around again to that Monday season review stream, because I will get into the content plan a bit more so if you're unsure what it is for the winter. So yeah, make sure to come along for that on Monday, and for all that content, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday as well. But let me just quickly, before I read your comments in chat, let me just quickly set up a poll. I want to know what you guys think of who do you think is going to win this weekend. So, who do you think will win the Abu Dhabi GP? And I'll just quickly do the options. The options I'm going to go for are Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Russell as my options. Let me just quickly do that. And then, yeah, let me know for the rest of the stream, guys, who do you think will win this weekend's race? And then when we come to the end of the stream, I'll end the poll and we'll see what you guys have to say. So make sure to vote on that poll at the top of the live chat. Who do you think will win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, or Russell? My prediction is it'll be Max Verstappen. Again, let me know what you think. But let's read out some comments from you guys in the chat. I've got plenty of comments to go through. And hello to all of you, by the way. Good to see you all here. Herman the Tosser says Ferrari will claim second thanks to Sainz. Josiah says Hamilton has 6 wins here. Let's not be mistaken. The truth is the truth, and we all know it. I mean, officially he doesn't, but yeah, I know what you mean. Good evening, by the way, to everyone. Good to see you all here. Josiah says about how they didn't tell Max to let Perez through until the end, despite the message to let Perez through coming in or through the last corner at turn 6. And they also told Max not to use DRS, right? I'll be honest, I've not heard, any radio transmissions from the actual Grand Prix because I've been busy with other things. I've not had a chance really to, to go through it all and view it all. But, let's find some other comments if I can. Hello to Will Chan, good to see you. And, oh God, I've gone a bit too far. Sparky Pete says, hey, Rooksville and everyone. Good to see you, by the way. Says, howdy from the good old US. I respect Max for sticking to his morals, right or wrong. He's consistent. Red Bull statement was BS. He was told way before I heard it live. Yeah, I'm thinking back. I'm pretty sure we saw his radio thing come up as he was coming into turn 10 on the final lap, which is, not the final corner. And obviously that radio transmission is delayed. So it's not a live radio transmission that we heard on the TV broadcast. Labgura says Perez should take it out on Verstappen in Abu Dhabi. He should consider getting some revenge. Well, you never know what could happen. Perez does have a chance to overtake Verstappen at some point in the race, which would be, unrealistic because, normally Max is way ahead of Sergio. It'd be interesting to see whether, Sergio does, absolutely go for it. Paul Bartolo says, if you are taking a penalty, you should be excluded from qualifying. If you declare it after the fact, you should start from the pit lane. Not sure what you're talking about there. Paul says, if you crash in qualifying, you should be moved to last in that session and the clock be stopped. I disagree with that. I don't think that should be the case. I think they should keep it as it is. I don't see the issues. Because even though, crashes causes, red flags, and it's annoying, qualifying is supposed to reward the quickest drivers, and just because you crash does not mean you're slow, necessarily. So, that would be... to be honest, it'd make qualifying less fun, because you would get drivers not pushing as hard, knowing that if they crash, they'll be moved to the back. And, that's just... I think that'd be a terrible thing. But, that's just my opinion at the end of the day. Herman says, I really wonder if we had social media back in 1997 time, what everyone would have thought about the Schumacher-Villeneuve incident. Efron would have absolutely crucified Michael to the nth degree. The thing is, I know people are thinking, oh my God, Max Verstappen is so heavily criticised and, everyone hates him. Like Herman was saying, basically, if we had social media back in the mid to late 90s, and even the 2000s, Michael Schumacher would have got an absolute unbelievable amount of hate online. Ayrton Senna would have as well, because remember, he deliberately took Prost out the first corner in 1990 at Suzuka. And a lot of the things Senna did, I know people look back at it fondly as, Senna was such a good driver, but a lot of the driving or maneuvers he pulled in defending his position and even attacking position, were very suspect, I have to say. Obviously, he was an amazing driver, but let's be honest, he wasn't the cleanest in the way he did things. And if his social media was, around back then, he would have got absolutely crucified. So I don't think Verstappen is... I don't think Verstappen stands out necessarily as being like the most hated driver ever. I think when it comes to people hating him, I think it's obviously, fans of opposing teams and opposing drivers that just naturally against him because, he's not their driver or not part of their team. But also because of what happened in 2021 with the championship finale, they take it out on Verstappen because obviously he benefited from it when obviously he did not make that decision to restart the race. Rook says, don't know if Red Bull be any quicker than Merc here, not by any technical track knowledge, just the fact that Red Bull and AMG have done a role reversal, i.e. one dominating the whole season, but the other being really strong in the last few races. Yeah, I see what you mean. It has been a bit of a role reversal there. Lab asks, is Binotto actually leaving? Let's hope, but I think those reports, I think they're, they've got to have some ground, because Gazzetta in Italy, they're a massive publication. They wouldn't just report absolute bullshit, I don't think. Rook says, thought Binotto was on thin ice when he was finger-wagging Leclerc. Yeah, that wasn't great. Lab says Binotto should be put in charge of the stickers in the Ferrari motorhome. Raweda should be his assistant for that. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Krista Racing said Max is mom on Instagram. That's the thing as well. When Red Bull was saying, the hate directed towards certain drivers and family members. Yeah, that's, I agree. We should, condemn that. Oh, sorry, just had sorry if that the stream froze for a second. Just had a slight drop in frames there. Yeah, apologies if that did happen. Yeah, it's all great saying that, and I agree. Abuse of any kind should not happen. But Max's mum on Instagram directed, some sort of abuse towards Sergio Perez's family. So, or, directed criticism that could absolutely be a trigger for abuse towards someone. So, yeah, it's, the problems there are a lot closer to home than they think, I think, with Red Bull. Menho says it's not the Ferrari team boss the issue, it's the people working for him. Ferrari will continue to lose watch even with a new team boss. I mean, yeah, Ferrari, like I said, with a new team boss, it's not just going to change overnight, and even after a season or two, it's not just going to automatically be different, but it will make a difference. But what they've got to do now, if they do make that swap of Binotto and Vasseur, or not swap, because I don't think Binotto's going to go to Alfa Romeo. What they need to do is take the further steps that I laid out for them to be successful again. Because there's no reason why Ferrari cannot win championships again. There's absolutely no reason why they can't. They've got the resources, they've got the pulling power. They can hire anyone really that they, that if they offer a contract to someone, they've got that amount of power that they can bring, almost everyone to their team. They can absolutely win championships. It's just they need to put the right people in place to get the job done. And if they do make this change at Ferrari, it would be nice to see them, beginning that process. Crystal Racing says, good to see you, by the way, mate. Says, what happened at Brazil may haunt Max if Checo goes rogue. Ricciardo and De Vries might replace him, but I don't think they'll help him like Checo has done. It is rumoured, of course, that Daniel Ricciardo is going to be the reserve driver and brand ambassador for Red Bull for 2023. Now, that'd be great for Ricciardo because, of course, if there is further falling out between Verstappen and Perez in 2023, then Ricciardo's got a seat there that he could possibly get. Or even, Nick De Vries. You never know what he could do. Let's also not count out Yuki Tsunoda, because if he has another good, not another good year, but if he steps up again in 2023, then you never know what could happen. But, there is a possibility for sure that things could change at Red Bull very soon. Crystal says, I'm not sure about Vassar, to be honest. 2020 and 2021 saw huge organisation, the strategic errors committed, hurting Kimi and Giovinazzi's races. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's I wouldn't say Vassar is, totally flawless, and I don't think the job is that he's done at Sauber / Alfa Romeo has been, flawless. Yeah, 2020 and 2021 definitely were not as good years as really they should have been for Alfa Romeo, Sauber, whatever you want to call them. But they bounced back this year. They produced a very good car. The only problem is because of the last-minute weight regulation change in terms of what the minimum weight had to be, and also the lack of development budget they have, that's really affected them this season. So I think Alfa Romeo, if the minimum weight thing had not been altered, Alfa Romeo could have been a front-running team at the start of this year, because I think they were the only team who were... was it the minimum weight or maximum weight that they changed? I can't remember exactly, but they made an alteration to that rule. I think Alfa Romeo were the only team at the time in testing that were in keeping with the regulations. So, yeah. So regards as Bonotto has been an alright team principal, but yeah, Vassar is probably a slight upgrade. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Herman says, Gasly is very lucky to get the Alpine drive with all the driver markets present and coming 2024, 2025. I wouldn't say very lucky, but, it's a good seat that he's moving to for next year. Alpine reckon they made a good step forward for next year, so we'll see how they get on. But I think Alpine will still definitely be a midfield team. I don't think they're going to move up to the front of Formula One or anything like that. Optris United says, Chazza, it's not that Verstappen didn't deserve the world title, it's his mentality. Verstappen mentality is so bad and doesn't set an example for people coming into the sport. With the contact with Lewis Hamilton in Brazil, it's like he had no regrets making contact with him. Yeah, those comments were a bit poor about, he just decided to go for the move anyway, no matter how it finished or how it ended up. And people have noted this in the last few days, and it is weird to me how, for some reason, when it comes to Lewis Hamilton, he just feels the need to be so aggressive and forceful. I don't know if he's trying to, desperately prove something to Lewis, but he's not going to prove anything good to Lewis by continuously driving poorly and crashing into him. So yeah, I don't know if it's because he's got a grudge that he holds from the British Grand Prix last year where Hamilton took him off. I don't know. Again, I don't know why, but looking back at the incident, I've seen people say, even Martin Brundle said it was Hamilton's fault because Hamilton didn't leave the space. Hamilton didn't leave as much space as he probably could have, but just because someone's along, or not, he wasn't fully alongside, but because someone is there and trying to go for the move, and halfway alongside, does not necessarily mean you have to just jump out of the way. At the end of the day, Lewis had his car ahead, and Lewis had the racing line into that corner. It was always going to be quicker through the corner, and if Verstappen did not want to have a crash, then he should have backed out and should have let Lewis go. But as he said, he wanted to go for it, whether it ended in an overtake or an accident. And if you look at the onboard from Max's onboard, it was pretty clear to see Max was at fault because he just forced his way in there. It's not like Verstappen was hanging on the apex hoping Lewis wouldn't crash into him. He forced his way into turn 2 and forced Hamilton off the circuit. So yeah, it was pretty clear Max's fault. So yeah, and then I thought it was interesting as well with the other incident that happened on that same lap with Norris and Leclerc. Obviously Norris clearly at fault for that incident. Lando criticised Leclerc by saying in racing the first rule is never to go around the outside, which, well, I've never heard that before. Obviously I'm not a racing driver, but I don't see what the issue is with trying to go around the outside of someone. At the end of the day, Norris caused the accident. I still think with Leclerc, he should have been a bit safer because he didn't have to go for that move. He could have waited probably until the end of that lap to overtake Norris. It wasn't worth the risk. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, Norris was still at fault for that accident. Find some other comments here if I can. Eric says, I think it'll be Red Bull's interest to try and settle problems between Max and Checo that they're having. Those two have been a really good team. It could take years to build a team that is just as good. True. Herman says, I watched F1 for over 20 years, and to be honest, it was great seeing the downfall of Michael Schumacher 2005 and seeing Alonso the new champion. I mean, obviously, I wasn't, I was alive at the time, but yeah, I remember when, even though I've never had a hatred or anything of Sebastian Vettel, it was nice to see in 2014 Lewis Hamilton win the championship and someone new win the championship, because when you have, you know, so many years in a row, the same driver and team combo winning, it does make things a bit repetitive. Yeah, I don't, you know, I don't see how that's necessarily a bad thing, to be honest. Let me try and find any more comments if I can. Let's just see if there's any other good ones I can just read out quickly before we move on. I'll read out this final one before we move on. And by the way, I will still read out some more comments from you guys because we still have quite a bit to go in this stream. McLaren Race says, hi, Chazza and F1. Would be fitting if Lewis won the last race. He would keep his win in every season intact. And I won't go into what else I'm thinking. Lol. And good to see you, mate. And yeah, whether he keeps that record is going to be interesting to see, because he's going to have to work incredibly hard, I think, this weekend to keep that record. Anyway, let's move on from the top teams, and now let's go on to McLaren. What a disastrous race it was for them in Brazil. Double DNF. Also, in the end, in the race, even though Alpine had a much worse grid position, McLaren's pace was pretty poor in the race as well. Lando Norris was only heading probably for maybe 9th, maybe 8th at best. And obviously Alpine finished 5th and 8th in the Grand Prix in the end, after the safety car came out for Lando Norris's broken down car. Ricciardo obviously punted Magnus out of the race, and then Magnussen paid him right back and slammed him out of the race. So yeah, no points for them there. Alpine scored 14 points, and obviously Alpine now 19 points clear of McLaren going into this final Grand Prix. The only thing I can really say about McLaren is I think this weekend they will be, with Lando Norris, very competitive. I think you'll see Norris right up there at the front of the midfield. Whether he keeps that in the race, I have no idea. Daniel Ricciardo, I don't expect to be that competitive this weekend in what could be his final race as a Formula 1 driver. Yeah, I don't expect Ricciardo to be that competitive because he's never really been massively strong here. I don't think he's ever finished on the podium here in Abu Dhabi, and he's had some good cars to be able to do that in the past. So, yeah. Ricciardo, maybe he'll nick a point on his final race for McLaren. Would be a good finish for him. Yeah, for Lando Norris, he'll probably finish in 7th or 8th in the race this weekend. But it won't be enough because, of course, the next team that we are going to go on to, Alpine, they are pretty much secured, despite the drivers at war in Brazil, they pretty much have secured 4th place in the championship. A great result in Brazil. They got the best result they could, which is not normal for them. Normally, they don't quite deliver as much as they should on a Sunday. But yeah, great performance by both drivers, especially Fernando Alonso. An amazing final few laps from him, and he showed exactly why he is still, for me, one of the top 5 best drivers in Formula 1, despite being over 40 years old. So yeah, brilliant job from Fernando. Great from Ocon as well. He had a great move that he did on Sebastian Vettel on the restart of the race later on. I think lap 60 it was when he got going again. Grand Prix. But yeah, for Alpine, yeah, it's all wrapped up. So all they've got to do this weekend is just, end the season in style, which is getting, I'd say, both cars into the points. If Alonso can finish at the head of the midfield pack and even maybe outscore Ocon enough to finish ahead of him in the championship, that would be absolutely brilliant, because Alonso has been very good this season. Let's not put that into doubt. He has been very, very good this season as Fernando. I mean, he's 5 points behind Ocon in the championship going into the final race, and Alonso has been so much unluckier than Ocon in 2022. That shows you that despite Ocon being a bit more competitive with Fernando this season than I expected, and in general with their partnership, Alonso has been unlucky, definitely this season, and has been definitely this season the better driver. And out of all of the midfield teams, the best driver out of all those midfield teams is absolutely Fernando Alonso. But yeah, a double points finish, which I think is definitely possible. Whether they do get it or not is another complete another thing, because you've got Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, who are going to be, I think, decently competitive this weekend, and certain drivers as well down the order that will be pretty competitive here. So yeah, whether they actually get the double points finish, who knows? But they should be definitely, in that fight to get both cars in the points. And yeah, it'd be a fitting way to end what has been a good season, because you have to remember Alpine/Renault, they've not finished in the top 4 of the championship since 2018. It's been a very underperforming last few years for them, where they should have finished probably 2019, even though McLaren bounced back big time. Renault really should have finished 4th that year, because they had really the potential to be the best midfield team. 2020 probably could have finished in 3rd place that year, and probably should have, given the amount of money and resources they had that year compared to the other two. And then yeah, last year was a bit disappointing, how they, still were 5th, but they were not that quick last year. Not really until the last, 8 races of the season were they consistently quick in 2021. And yeah, this year they've been a lot quicker. They've produced a pretty decent car for these regulations. Hopefully they'll take a good step forward next year. And yeah, for 2023, they should be still fighting at the front of the midfield. Whether they'll be finishing in 4th place is a completely different story, because we know obviously Alonso is going to Aston Martin. Aston Martin should improve a lot for next season, and McLaren, I think, should improve a bit on what they've done in 2022. So yeah, next season will be a bit tougher for the Alpine team. But yeah, a double points finish would be a good way to finish off what's been definitely a good season for Alpine, where they've done the best really they could have done. Now we'll go on to Alfa Romeo. Obviously they're in still a close fight in the Constructors' Championship with Aston Martin. 5 points clear they are of Aston Martin, and realistically, unless Aston Martin really pull out a big weekend, it should be Alfa Romeo finishing 6th in the championship. And as I have said a few times in the last few weeks, this is vital. This really is for Alfa Romeo. It is really vital that they do finish 6th in the championship, because the extra prize money that you will get for finishing that much higher in the championship is vital to a team like Sauber/Alfa Romeo. I'm just quickly googling what the prize money is in 2022 in terms, let me just try and find it quickly if I can. And hold on, just trying to see if I can find it. Finding ones that are a bit older, unfortunately. Right, let me try and see if I can find it, because what I want to show is, the difference in money, if I can. Right. Well, that's not what I was looking for. Let me see if I can find the prize money, the teams, and can I find it? I'm not sure if I can. Hold on. Further look to see if there's anything else I can. Right. So. Oh, right. I think I need to probably do a bit more research into it because it looks as though it's a bit more confusing. But the point is, it is quite a few more million than they were getting last season and the season before, because you have to remember in 19, 20, and 2021, the best they finished was 8th. They finished 8th in 2019, 8th in 2020, and 9th in 2021. So to go from 9th to 6th, that's massive. That could really help them next season. And if they continue with a car that's definitely a good car and really move it on development-wise, then they could absolutely, next season, be a bit more of a contender than what we've seen in 2023. Yeah, it's vital that Alfa Romeo finished 6th in the championship. And to be honest, for Aston Martin, who are in this fight, it would probably be better for Aston Martin if they did finish 7th, because they would get that slightly extra bit of wind tunnel testing time compared to the top 5 in the championship, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren, than they would get for finishing in 6th. It's not a massive difference between 6th and 7th, but, you know, any difference is a difference. So, yeah, I would like to see Alfa Romeo finish 6th, because, again, they need the money more, and I think it would be a deserved 6th place, because they start the season with a car way quicker than Aston Martin, and really the only reason Aston Martin now have a faster car is because they have been able to develop their car a lot more, because they have a lot more finances behind them than Alfa Romeo do. So, yeah, my hope is Alfa Romeo will finish in 6th, and that you'll have Aston Martin finishing in 7th, because Aston Martin, I mean, 6th in the championship for them doesn't really matter, because I think their aims in F1 is a lot higher than just 6th place. Next season, I'd say Aston Martin are probably aiming for 4th place, to be honest, in the championship. But this Grand Prix, really, Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin should have similar cars around a track like this. It suits really both cars pretty well, especially when we get to the race, because we know in a race situation, both teams have a pretty good car on race day on heavier fuels. So, yeah, Alfa Romeo looking good, and they should, with what Valtteri Bottas did in Brazil, which was a great result, finishing in P9. And if it wasn't for the safety car coming out when it did for Norris's car, Valtteri could have finished in 5th place, 6th place, maybe even 7th place. So it should have really been better than it actually was in the end for the Finn. But yeah, let's hope for Alfa Romeo they can hang on to 6th in the championship. Next up is Haas F1. And yeah, 2 points clear of AlphaTauri. Obviously, they had a very good weekend in Brazil by getting the pole on the Friday, getting Magnussen his point on the Saturday in the sprint, and that obviously pulls him a further point clearer of AlphaTauri in that very important battle for Haas. I mean, their financial situation is improving for next season anyway, where they'll be getting a title sponsorship back for 2023, something they had in 2021, but you know, obviously had to cut ties with at the start of this year. So, yeah, 8th of the championship. Obviously, they'll want to wrap that up before the season is over. What was I going to say quickly? Oh, yeah, there has been some big news today in regards to the Haas driver situation. Obviously, I talked about with you guys about how, you know, it was looking as though it was between Mick Schumacher and Nico Hülkenberg in regards to who was going to be at Haas F1 in 2023. Well, we heard today the final news in regards to this situation. And let me just quickly find Mick Schumacher's tweet. And there you go. Let me just get it up on screen. Sorry, the writing's a bit small, but there's nothing I can do about that. So he posted this out at, 5 a.m. this morning, which is a bit extreme. Obviously, for him, it was probably in Abu Dhabi about, 8 a.m., something like that. So yeah, it was fine timing-wise for him. He said, "This is going to be my last race with Haas F1. I don't want to hide the fact that I am very disappointed about the decision not to renew our contract. Nevertheless, I'd like to thank both Haas and Ferrari for giving me this opportunity. Those years together have helped me to mature, both technically and personally, and especially when things got difficult, I realised how much I love this sport. It was at times bumpy, but I steadily improved, learned a lot, and now know for sure that I deserve a place in Formula One. The subject is anything but close to me. Setbacks only make you stronger. My fire burns for Formula One, and I will fight hard to return to the starting grid." And yeah, obviously, his replacement is going to be Nico Hülkenberg at the Haas team. Which, I mean, the decision to replace him with Hülkenberg is understandable because Hülkenberg, at the minute, is a more reliable driver. But it's a sideways move. It doesn't really get Haas any further up the grid going for Nico Hülkenberg. And yeah, Magnussen and Hülkenberg, like I said, it's a good lineup. I mean, it's kind of like Magnussen and Grosjean in a way, except that Hülkenberg is way more reliable than Grosjean ever was. In terms of, the experience factor. And obviously Haas F1, that's always been a big thing for them. That's why they had Magnussen and Grosjean around for so long, because of their experience at the team. And that's obviously, when they replaced Nikita Mazepin, that's why they replaced Mazepin with Kevin Magnussen, because, they knew him, obviously, from all the years he'd been at Haas, and he was very experienced when it came to Formula One. So, yeah. Brilliant. Obviously for Hülkenberg, sad for Schumacher. In terms of Mick's future, though, I don't think this is this is the end for him in Formula One. I think he will be back on the grid. I think that for sure. I think he'll be on the grid again, no doubt about it. I mean, Audi, for example, who are coming into Formula One as a works team, and they'll be obviously taking over what is now the Alfa Romeo team. Audi, they've said that they would be very keen on having German drivers at their team. Maybe, they lure Sebastian Vettel out of retirement. Obviously, this weekend is Vettel's final race, which we'll get onto in a bit further down in this stream. Maybe Mick Schumacher would, have an opportunity at the Audi team, and maybe Sauber will decide to hire him before he goes, or before they become Audi, so he does have some experience with the team and is firing on all cylinders, no pun intended, when it comes to the year 2026. But yeah, I think Mick will be back on the grid. I don't think, looking at this year, has it been as good of a year as it should have been for Mick? No. He has disappointed in some aspects, but I don't think he's had a bad season at all. I mean, Kevin Magnussen has even said that in the last, not the last few races, the second half of this season, Magnussen has said that it's been difficult to beat Mick in the races this second half of the season. The problem is that as his performance has improved, the car's performance dipped because of the lack of development that went into the Haas car. That's what really hurt Mick, because if the car in the second half of this season was as quick as it was in the first half of the season, then Mick probably would have had a few points finishes and would have been keeping his seat for 2023. But because of the way things have happened, that's why he's not on the grid for 2023. And obviously the accident damage in terms of the cost that he caused the team definitely would have hurt his chances, but I don't think that would have hurt his chances as much as people maybe are claiming. But yeah, I think he'll be on the grid for sure in, I'd say, 2024 or at the latest 2025, he will be back in F1. There's even been rumours that maybe Mercedes might hire him as a reserve driver, so you might see him driving the Mercedes car next year in a couple practice sessions. But yeah, he will be back in F1. There's no doubt about it. He is good enough for F1. He just needs another opportunity and a team that's going to be fairer and actually develop young talent better. Maybe, you never know, he could end up at the Sauber team, like I said, before they become Audi for 2026. But it'll be tough for them, or for him, because he might be in competition for that seat with Théo Pourchaire, who I know Sauber are very keen on for the future. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, sad for Mick. Hülkenberg back in F1. I don't really feel anything towards that. I mean, you know, he deserves to be in F1, does Hülkenberg. He is good enough. I have no doubt about that. But it doesn't really excite me, this move. So, yeah. We'll see how they get on next season. In regards to this weekend, I don't think AlphaTauri are going to be that competitive this weekend. So Haas, I think, will be safe when it comes to finishing 8th in the championship. Next up is AlphaTauri. And yeah, like I said, I don't think they'll be super competitive this weekend. Obviously, last year they finished 4th and 5th at this Grand Prix. And let's watch out for Yuki Tsunoda this weekend because he was very competitive in this Grand Prix last year. And yeah, he might be a surprise or even a dark horse for this weekend's Grand Prix. But yeah, realistically, I don't think they'll be that competitive because I just don't think this track suits them as much as Sao Paulo. So yeah, the circuits this season AlphaTauri have really performed well at are these stop-start type of tracks where you've got long straights and then slow corner, rather than there being, you know, load of fast corners or medium speed corners. They've struggled at circuits like that. And of course, here in Abu Dhabi, the corners are a bit more faster and medium speed than, you know, being stop-starty. I know in the middle sector it is a bit stop-starty, but yeah, I don't think AlphaTauri will be that competitive here. And they will finish 9th in the championship, which would be a disappointing season for AlphaTauri after, of course, finishing 6th in 2021, and really that season they should have finished in 5th. And now on to Aston Martin. Like I said, realistically, I don't think they're going to get 6th in the championship because they would need to finish 7th in the race and hope that Alfa Romeo don't score a point, which is, I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's realistic because I don't think Aston Martin are going to be qualifying amazingly high, which would be a big requirement for them if they're going to finish 7th in the race. And I think in the race, they're going to have to contend, obviously, with Norris and the McLaren and the Alpines as well. I think they probably do score maybe a point or two this weekend, hopefully, with Sebastian Vettel. But, yeah, realistically, I think it will be 7th in the championship for Aston Martin. And, of course, it is Sebastian Vettel's, for what we know at the moment, his final race in Formula One. The time has come to say goodbye, unfortunately, to Sebastian Vettel. What a career he's had. Even though, yes, I have been critical of him in certain seasons and for certain things, he has had an amazing career. There is no doubt about it. And, yeah, he's definitely, for me, one of the top 10 best drivers of all time at the moment. You know, in regards to where he ends up in 10 years from now, depends obviously on how other drivers do, like your Verstappens, Leclerc's, Russells, Norris's, you know, drivers like that. But yeah, great career, very, very good driver, obviously, in Formula One, and has had many memorable, great performances. And it is sad to see him going when, I mean, it's been pretty clear to see this season, which has been a good season, I think, for Vettel. But he's got definitely more years left in him. But, you know, obviously it's his decision to retire from Formula One. And yeah, I think there's a decent chance he does end his career with a points finish because he's always been very competitive here. And the Aston Martin car should be decently quicker on a track like this. But let's get into some stats regarding Aston Martin and Sebastian Vettel and, you know, their history, or Sebastian Vettel's history. coming into his final race around this circuit. So Vettel has won in Abu Dhabi 3 times since 2009. All those wins for Red Bull in 2009, 2010, and 2013. Obviously, the win in 2010 secured him his first ever World Championship, and Vettel has finished in the points of every race here in Abu Dhabi except for the last 2 years of 2020 and 2021. So yeah, he's hoping to finish his career off in style, and getting a top 10 finish would be, I think, the best really he could do. And I hope that he does finish off with a points finish because, like I said, he's had a great season considering the dog of a car he's had to drive. And I think he deserves that final points finish for just how hard he's worked, how good he's been in Formula 1. And I really hope he has a good final weekend in Formula 1. Again, you never know, could come back with Audi maybe in 2026. It is a possibility. I don't think it's realistic, but I think it's a possibility. And yeah, we will see how, that all plays out maybe later in this decade. But let's all hope that Vettel ends his career in some sort of style. And I'm sure on the final, after the final lap, you'll have the Hamilton, Alonso, and Vettel trio, just like we did at the end of the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, to do donuts on the grid. Given Verstappen's reputation in F1, not sure if he'll be invited to that particular trio, or into that particular party, I guess you could say. And finally for Williams, Alex Albon's, from what I remember, he's been pretty competitive in these races before, as Albon finished, I think, 4th here for Red Bull. That was his last race ever for Red Bull in 2020. And was, again, like I said, pretty competitive. Also finished in 6th place in 2019 for Red Bull as well. So, yeah, he's got good pace around here. And I think he won here in F2 in 2018 as well. So watch out for Alex Albon this weekend in the Williams. And obviously, it is the GOAT's final race in F1. We wish him well in his final Grand Prix. Whether Williams get a points finish or not, who knows? Probably not. But it'll be interesting to see how competitive they can be in qualifying. Albon will probably get into Q2. Not sure how much further, really, he gets. But now, we'll go on to the front-running teams again quickly. And I'm going to read out some more comments in the chat to see what you guys had to have to say in regards to what I was saying about all the midfield teams and all. McLaren F1 races, thanks for your opinions and commentary, Chaz. I actively look for your YouTube notifications about 6 PM before a race weekend. Lol, your voice starts a race weekend, matey. Thanks for that. Eric says, do you think Mick Schumacher may be able to stay in F1 if Logan Sargent fails to get enough super license points in the final F2 race this weekend? I think really for Williams, I think it would be the best option. I mean, for Mick, would he enjoy that experience? Maybe not too much, but it would keep him in F1 and keep him around. I think if you lose your seat in F1, and this is something that Hulkenberg has done very well, if you keep around in the F1 paddock and you get a reserve drive and maybe you do a couple races here or there, replacing someone who's ill or injured or whatever, it keeps your name in the hat. So that's what Mick needs to do. He needs to keep his name in the hat. And the best thing he can do at the minute is I do think Sargent will get will finish in the top 5 of the F2 Championship this weekend. And will, be then getting enough super license points to be racing in F1 next year. The best thing Mick can do is get a reserve driver role at a team like Mercedes or even Ferrari maybe. Who knows? Because again, it keeps his name in the hat for who maybe could have a seat at Sauber in 2024, maybe back at Haas in 2024, or Williams. Obviously, we don't know how Williams are going to be next year. Maybe Williams will be a lot more competitive next year. Like I said, it keeps his name in the hat, and that's something that Hulkenberg did very well to keep his name in people's minds for, possibly getting a Formula 1 seat. What Paul Bartolo says, will the lower place teams, example McLaren, turn the party modes up for the race? Let's face it, they have nothing to lose. Well, I think they do anyway, to be honest, to try and obviously finish as high as they can. But yeah, if they've got a chance to get a great result, obviously they're going to absolutely go for it this weekend. But yeah, I don't think that's really going to happen. Let's find some other comments here if I can. Bristol Racing says Bottas 49 of Alpha's 55 points. Yeah, Zhou has scored 6 points this season. I think, what was it, 1 in Bahrain, 1 at Monza, and 4 in Canada. That's one driver that Mick could replace in 2024. Again, Sauber, like I said, they are very keen on Théo Pourchaire, who is still very young, finished second in the F2 Championship in 2022. And I think won the F3 title when he was, 16, 17? So, yeah. It might be a bit hard to get into that team, but, that's a possibility. To replace Zhou. Miss Marquis says, I don't think he'll be back. In regards to Mick. Find anything else here. Vettel's says Crystal Racing, Vettel's greatest strength has been building strong relationships within teams. Driving fast alone isn't enough to win multiple world championships, and that is true. Let's find some other ones if I can in regards to Vettel. Lavgura says, I absolutely gained a lot of respect for Vettel when he left my team. Ferrari treated him like dirt, and he deserved to just be happy. Yeah, I mean, when it came to the Ferrari-Vettel partnership, my stance is always, again, that they both just didn't deliver on their ends of the bargain. And the reason Ferrari were not as supportive or backing him was because Vettel made too many very important errors that cost the team vital points. And when I mean vital points, I mean race wins, the championship. So, yeah. At the end of the day, when it comes to a team effort, when it comes, team and driver, it's a two-way street. Both the team and the driver need to deliver on their ends of the bargain. Like, if you look at this season, for example, Charles Leclerc, yeah, he's made a couple errors, but Charles Leclerc really has delivered on his end of the bargain, but Ferrari have not. But with Vettel and Ferrari, especially 2017 and 18, I think both of them failed to deliver when they really needed to. Joe Hart says, I'm sad that we're at the last F1 Grand Prix of the year. Hopefully next year will be more competitive / close. Do you think it'll be more close? Thanks. Yeah, I think it will. I mean, if you look at F1 normally, because obviously this year is a new set of regulations. Normally, when we have a new set of regulations, the field spread goes bigger. So, the gap between the quickest team and the slowest team increases by quite a bit. And you saw last year, the gap between the top two teams and the midfield was not as big as it was, say, in 2019, because at the end of those particular regulations, and it's really the case of any set of regulations, there's only so far you can go with a car in terms of ideas for design to make the car faster. Like I said, there's only so many things you can do to make a car quicker. And because of, the lack of development compared to how they used to be able to develop from now on, obviously because of the budget cap and the restricted wind tunnel testing time, and obviously it's less restricted for the slower or lower placed championship teams. I think next year will be closer. I think, Mercedes will be closer definitely to Ferrari and Red Bull, and I think Mercedes will be title contenders. Aston Martin will improve a lot, and I think McLaren will improve a bit. So they'll probably close the gap, those two teams, maybe Alpine as well, to the front three teams. In terms, because I mean the gap at the minute between, I would say, the top of the midfield and the front running teams is about a second per lap. I think most Grand Prix weekends. So yeah, if it comes down to 6-7 tenths of a second for next year, then that'd be pretty good. And then yeah, like I said, Aston Martin and McLaren, I think are the two teams I'm looking at really to improve the most next season. Williams hopefully make some improvements. They've not had that bad of a season, Williams. They've just started out a bit too slow, have the Williams team. But yeah, I think next year will be closer. And 2024 and 2025 will be even closer than 2023. So yeah, I think things will get more competitive, no doubt about it. Let's find another comment if I can. Latifi's just been a waste, sad to say. Crystal Racing also saying Albon underrated season indeed. Well, one thing I am going to do in my season review is I'm going to do a review of the obviously of the F1 season. I'm just trying to think of what I'm trying to say. I'm going to be doing a ranking for every driver for all of the 20 drivers. I'm not going to rank De Vries and Hulkenberg, who did races in 2022, because they weren't permanent drivers. So it will just be a ranking from, you know, 1st to 20th of the drivers this season. And yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going to put Albon yet, but it will be decently high, I think. I will say with Albon, he's had a good season, but I do think having Latifi as a teammate does help a driver like Alex Albon. So yeah, let's hope Logan Sargent is a bit more competitive next year. But yeah, Albon's had a good season, there's no doubt about it. I think you could argue that Albon has been probably one of the top 10 best drivers this season. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying you could argue that because, yeah, he has been very good this season, has Alex. I know he's only 2 points clear of Latifi, but yeah, he's had definitely a good season in 2022. But one final thing I'll go on to before we come to the end of the stream. Unfortunately, I don't have an onboard lap because I couldn't find a good enough one for you guys. But here is the track map. Please remember that the track is different to what the Yas Marina circuit, you know, was for the majority of the time when we were racing here in F1. So obviously the red, Sector 1, blue, Sector 2, yellow, Sector 3. And for Sector 1, you come into the 90-degree left-hander of Turn 1. Then the very fast Turn 2 and 3, which is in qualifying. Well, Turn 2 might not be flat out, but Turn 3 definitely will be. And then you go into Turn 4, which is not really a corner. And then into the Turn 5 hairpin, which of course that's where Max Verstappen overtook Lewis Hamilton to win the world title last year. And then the very, very long DRS straight between Turn 5 and 6. With these cars that could follow a lot better, it's going to be very interesting to see how much overtaking and racing we get down not just that straight, but the straight between Turn 7 and Turn 9 as well. So yeah, we might see a lot of overtaking this weekend, which is good. Turn 6 and 7 is a good little chicane for racing. And then again, between Turn 7 and Turn 9, another long DRS straight. Then into a pretty fast Turn 9. Thankfully, a lot faster than it used to be in that particular part of the track. Turn 10 and 11, right-handed kinks as you go down to the 90-degree medium speed, I'd say slow speed, Turn 12. And then into much faster Turn 13 and 14 compared to what it used to be. It used to be a lot slower there, very slow left-hand 90-degree corners. Now it's a lot quicker to allow the cars to follow a lot better. And then into the final 2 corners, turn 15 and turn 16, 2 right-handers, and then back onto the lap. And we saw last year that even though the race itself wasn't massively more exciting than, say, previous Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, it was definitely a better track layout than what we had, say, from 2020 and then before that. So, yeah, good track layout. Well, good track layout. Maybe not. I'm not sure I'd say a good track layout, but better track layout for sure than we've seen in the past. So that is the track here in Yas Marina. But guys, that is it for my weekend preview for the final Grand Prix in 2022, the 2022 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. One thing I am going to do finally is end the poll in the chat and see who you guys think is going to win the race this weekend. So the question was, who do you think will win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? And you guys, with 50% of the vote, have voted for Lewis Hamilton. And then 35% of 35% of the vote in second is Max Verstappen. I'm surprised he lost out by that much, to be honest. Third, Charles Leclerc. And then fourth is George Russell. So, yeah. And if anyone's wondering, my answer to that question was that I thought Max Verstappen was going to win this weekend. I still think, Lewis Hamilton will be second with Leclerc third, but I am surprised that you guys think Hamilton is going to win this weekend. But we'll see, and maybe we'll get a very good, exciting, and close fight for the win this weekend in Yas Marina. But like I said, thank you guys so much for coming along to this final weekend preview of the season. Hopefully my weekend previews can improve next season. But yeah, we'll see how they improve for next season. Hopefully they do quite a bit. But yeah, cheers for coming along, everyone, for this weekend preview. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Like I said, I'll be live tomorrow at 6 PM UK time for the qualifying preview, where I'm going to go through practice, look at all the data, what happened in practice, and I will give my best prediction as to what I think will happen in qualifying on Saturday. And then, of course, I'll be live for practice 3 and qualifying on the Saturday, and then the race on Sunday as well. And I'll remind you guys later in the weekend what the timings are for those sessions. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. And as well, for everyone watching, if you haven't already, before you go, don't forget to smash the like button to help the channel grow. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 or ChazHD on Twitter. And don't forget to join our Discord server, link below in the description for more content like this. But guys, until 6 PM UK time tomorrow for my final qualifying preview of the season, it has been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.